So let's just take a breath together as we just move into this time of our service. You know, as I said, this is Martin Luther King weekend, and this is a time of year that we think of the beloved community. And unfortunately, sometimes it's the only time that we talk about the beloved community. But the beloved community is based on the awareness that we're all a part of the one, that there's only one life. It's based on the awareness of oneness. And that's what we talk about all the time. But we are architects of the beloved community. This is what the reading was talking about, being architects of the beloved community. And I think it's so important for us to recognize that the beloved community starts with each one of us. Just like peace starts with each one of us, the beloved community starts with each one of us. It starts with each one of us beginning to forgive, each one of us beginning to love, each one of us expressing more and more love into the world, each one of us making space for everybody else, and recognizing the worth and the value of everybody, recognizing that we're all in this life together. And the beloved community has been described as the prescription, Martin Luther King's prescription for a healthy society. His prescription for a healthy society was a community that was based on justice, equal opportunity, and love of everyone, love of one's fellow persons. Fellow men is what they say, but fellow persons is what I'll say this morning. So just thinking about being a part of the beloved community is what I'd like us to do today. And as we move into this, we're rounding out this month with the theme for the month, which was release, recapture, reclaim. And the first week we talked about release, surrender, surrendering those things that don't serve us. And last week we were talking about recapture, just recapturing the essence of who we are, the essence of our authentic selves. And I ask you all to really, really clarify your beliefs last week. What do you really believe? I hope that some of you took the time to do that, to really look at what you really believe about God, what you really believe about yourself, what you really believe about oneness. Because as we begin to clarify, we get real clear about what we believe, then we have an opportunity to change those things, those beliefs that don't serve us. And so that's what we were talking about last week. And so this week, my topic is faith du jour, faith du jour, faith of the day. And the third component of our monthly theme was reclaim, and that is reclaiming, restoring something to its natural state, rescuing something from an undesirable state and restoring it to its natural state. That's what reclaiming is all about. And that's what we're talking about today, reclaiming ourselves, reclaiming our beliefs, reclaiming who we are, who we are, reclaiming the wholeness that we are, reclaiming the completeness that we are, reclaiming the perfection that we are by releasing and letting go of all those things that don't serve, by clarifying our beliefs, and by really standing in the truth of who we are and having faith in the truth of who we are. And I thought about the topic, faith du jour, because, you know, the way that we live generally, and particularly going through this time, is from crisis to crisis to crisis. And so there's always a crisis du jour. There's always a crisis du jour. And all you have to do is turn on your TV to figure out what it is. And there'll be breaking news about something. And that's the crisis du jour. And what happens is, once we get caught up in that crisis, then we get caught up in what's beneath the crisis, and that is fear. That is fear. When we get caught up in the fear, Ernest Holmes says that fear is misplaced faith. It's misplaced faith. Fear and faith are two sides of the same coin. And so that which we have fear about, that's what we're putting our faith in, because that's what we give our attention to. That's the swirl, as I talked about the first week that we were talking about, release, recapture, reclaim, the swirls that we get caught up in, those things that take the focus of our attention, our energy, and everything. That's called the swirl. We get caught up in those swirls, and then that's where our faith goes. We start to believe in it. We start to believe in it. You know, I've said over and over that someone said that the only crisis we face is the crisis of fear, because that once we are in fear, we begin to believe in the reality of the crisis. And when we believe in the reality of the crisis, then we stop believing in the only thing that's really real, real with a capital R. And so I'm inviting us today to look at not at the crisis du jour, but what is your faith du jour? Because if you're getting caught up in each crisis, then that's where your faith is. And so we have to be mindful of, what is your faith du jour? What are you believing in? Belief and faith go hand in hand. Sometimes the terms are used interchangeably, but faith is a bit more. Faith is belief and acceptance and trust. Belief, acceptance, and trust. Faith is that abiding quality that underlies our belief. Faith is that knowingness that we have, that comes deep from deep within. However, faith, we can have faith in things that we don't want. This is where fear comes in. We can have faith that, depending on how much attention we give to it, we can have faith in things we don't like, things we don't want. When we start to believe in it, when we start to be consumed by it, when we start to let that be the focal point of our attention, our energy, our every thought, then that's where our faith is. And that's what Ernest Holmes calls misplaced faith. Misplaced faith. And so I'm inviting us to turn our attention to what we really want, turn our attention and our faith to that which we desire to have in our lives, turn our attention and our focus to that which we believe from a deep, deep level, changing our beliefs. Dare to believe, our theme for the year, dare to believe in the beloved community. Dare to believe that the beloved community starts with you, with me. Dare to believe that we can live in oneness, that we do live in oneness, that we are all one. That's what we that's what we have to dare to believe. And that's what we have to have faith in. We have to have faith in. We have to have faith in that belief that we are all one, that there's just one life. There's just but one power. There's but one presence. There's but one mind. There's but one breath. There's but one activity. And no matter what the appearance may be, no matter what's going on out there, we have to come back within. We have to come back in here. We have to come back and just really get to that place where we know that we know what we know. And we have faith in what we know to be the truth. We have faith in what we know to be the truth. And so I'm inviting you today to really look at, where's your faith? What is your faith du jour? What is your faith du jour? And to make sure that we are engaged in those practices that allow us to be focused on that which we desire, that which we know to be true, that which we know to be good, that which we know to be the allness and the fullness of God in expression right here and right now. Let's take a breath together. You know, there's a lot going on. I say that every week because there's a lot going on every week. There's a lot going on in the world today. There are a lot of crises going on. That who would have ever thought that the inauguration of a president would be a crisis time? But when you turn the TV on, there's crisis in action. And there's always some type of crisis. But this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves dealing with the crisis of a pandemic. We find ourselves dealing with the crisis of unemployment. We find ourselves dealing with all kinds of crises, health crises, all kinds of things that are going on. And what we have to do is to remain anchored. We have to remain centered. We have to remain in the truth that we know. We have to remain in that place of anchoring our belief that God is all there is, anchoring our belief that God is the only power and the only presence and the only mind and the only life. We have to remain anchored in this. And there are a couple of things I'm going to invite you to do today. And one of them is, don't get caught up in the drama. Don't get caught up in the drama of all that's going on. It's so easy. It's so easy during this time to get caught up in the drama. It's so easy because every time you turn on the television, every time you turn on the radio, if notifications come over your phone or your computer, there are notifications of someone doing this or somebody saying that or some kind of action. And yes, there are a lot of things that are going on. There are a lot of things that are going on. But if we get caught up in the drama of it, if we get caught up in the drama, drama is mesmerizing. Drama is mesmerizing. And when we get caught up in it, it takes our focus away from the truth. It takes our focus away from the light. It pulls us off into the darkness, because that's what drama does. Drama happens in the darkness. It circles around and circles around and circles around in the darkness. And once we get caught up in that, then we shut out the light. We close out the light. And so I'm inviting you to don't get caught up in the drama. Take a deep breath when you find yourself getting caught up, when you find yourself getting emotionally attached, when you find yourself constantly talking about what's going on, what he said, what she said, what they did, and all that. You have to take a deep breath. You have to take a step back, and you have to just recognize that I don't need to be caught up in this drama. Yes, these are facts. These are things that are going on. Yes, there are some things to be cautious about. There are some things to practice necessary precautions. Yes, there's a deadly pandemic happening. Yes, there's a lot of unrest in the world. In this country, there's a lot of unrest. There's a lot of things that are being anticipated for this upcoming week happening here. But do you know that the anticipation, the race consciousness of it all, the collective thought can bring those things into being, can bring all the predictions into being by the collective thought, by the race conscious beliefs. And so what I'm inviting us to do is to have our faith be in what we desire, have our faith be in the truth, have our faith be in the awareness that God is all there is. That God is bigger than any of this stuff that's going on. That God is bigger than this pandemic. God is bigger than the unrest around the inauguration, of political unrest. God is bigger than all of that. And when we can be anchored in the truth that we know, when we can keep returning unto the truth that we know and not contribute our consciousness, not allow our consciousness to become a part of that race consciousness, but stand in the consciousness of truth, the consciousness that we know, and stand in that place of faith, letting our faith be a beacon light. Ernest Holmes says that faith is a beacon light. Faith is a beacon light. Faith is a beacon light. And he says that when a person can believe in themselves and believe in the universe, believe in fellow man, believe in God, then the light of that faith will light up the place where they find themselves. And the light of that faith will also shed light on the path that they're following. And it sheds light into the world for everybody. And so what we want to do is just to be in that place of faith, be in that place of allowing our faith to be our beacon light, allowing our faith to be the beacon light. And when that beacon light shines, it shines on the awareness and brings into our awareness that all is good, that all is good, that life is good, that God is good, and that this goodness of God is all around us wherever we are, whatever we're doing, whatever is going on, whatever the facts may be, whatever the appearances may be. In the midst of it is the goodness of God. The goodness of God. And when we stand in that, when we pull our attention away from the drama of the things that are going on, when we pull our focus away from the idea of a crisis, and we stand in the peace that we know that is at the center of everything, the peace that we know is at the center of everything, and allowing that peace to be at our very center, allowing that peace to be at our very center, remembering what we were talking about a couple of months ago when we were talking about peace on earth, and allowing that peace to begin with me, allowing that peace to begin with me. That wasn't just for 1 month, that is for our lives. That is for forever. That is a forever charge, to allow peace to begin with me. And so this is a time to allow peace to begin with me, and to have faith in that peace, to have faith in my ability to allow peace to begin with me, have faith in my ability to see God in everything, to have faith in my ability to believe that God is in the midst of everything. And we can only do that when we allow the drama to fall away. When we refuse to get caught up in the drama that's going on. We refuse to keep talking about it. We refuse to keep engaging. We refuse to keep blaming. We refuse to keep judging. We refuse to do all those things that keep us separate, because drama is separating. Drama is separates us, because it brings us into those them and us camps. And that takes us away from the basis of our belief, which is our faith. Which is our faith. So I'm inviting you to allow your faith de jour. Allow your faith de jour to be the faith not only in God, but as Holmes says, the faith of God. And when we are in unity, when we are in that place of unification with God, when we are in that place of alignment with God, then we get to practice again, not only the faith in God, but our faith, but the faith of God. The faith of God becomes our faith. And that's how we begin to move in the world. The second thing I'd like you to do is to decline the distractions. Don't allow all the things that are going on to be distracting. Don't allow the crisis du jour to distract us from our faith du jour. Our faith, that abiding faith, that God is all there is, that abiding faith, that love is all there is, that abiding faith, that life is good. Don't allow the circumstances, don't allow the facts to distract us from that. Don't allow the facts to distract us from the truth that we know. The truth that we know. Keep coming back over and over again to the truth that we know, that God is all there is. God is right here, right now, right where I am. Right here, right now, right where I am. And so just anchoring ourselves in that truth, reminding ourselves, daring to believe that God is all there is, daring to believe as we walk through this time, that in the midst of all the chaos, in the midst of all the turmoil, there's peace. In the midst of all the turmoil, there's love. And that we are the architects of the beloved community to the degree that we allow that love to flow through us, wherever we are. We're in the line at the grocery store, driving in our cars, on the freeways, staying in our homes, watching TV, whatever, allowing our consciousness to be a consciousness of love, allowing our consciousness to be a consciousness of openness, allowing our consciousness to be a consciousness of oneness. And we're in that we get into that consciousness by our faith, by our belief, by our actions, by our acceptance, by our trust. Trusting in God, trusting ourselves, trusting the universe, trusting our fellow man, trusting that God is in the midst of everything despite the appearances. That is what is so important for us to do. So don't get caught up in the drama, and don't get sidetracked by the distractions. Don't allow the crises or the things that are identified as crises to distract us. The crisis du jour, we don't want it to distract us. We want our faith du jour to always be faith in oneness, faith in love, faith in the goodness of life, faith in the goodness of God, faith in the goodness of the universe, faith in good. That's what we want our faith du jour to be. It doesn't change. It doesn't change. We have the same faith every day. We have the same faith. The faith of the day is always the same for us. That's what we want to get to. So let's just take a breath together. The third thing I'd like to encourage you to do is to have an anchor. Get an anchor. Because, I don't care how good our intentions are about not getting caught up, or about not getting caught up in drama. It's easy to get caught up. It's easy to see things going on and want to know what's going on. And yes, we can watch a story on TV and there's a detached place or an unattached place from which we have to watch the news, from which we have to watch activities that are going on, from which we have to listen to certain things that are going on. There's a place of detachment. There's a place of not so much detachment as unattachment. When we can listen to it from a place of center, when we can see things from a place of center, when we can hear things from a place of center. And there are times when I'm in my home and I most of the time during the day when I'm working, I'll have the TV going just because I live alone, and it's, if I'm not on a meeting, it's good company just to hear the voices going on. But sometimes I'll stop and I'll go into the other room and I'll look at whatever the story may be. And if I find myself getting caught up in it, then I have to change the channel. I have to find something that brings me back to my center, because it's so easy for us to get drawn off our center. And that's what I mean about finding an anchor. What is an anchor for you? What is an anchor for you? What is it that brings you back to your center? What practice do you have that brings you back to your center? One of the things that brings me back from the situation with the TV is I can just immediately switch it over to YouTube TV, not YouTube TV, but YouTube, the YouTube channel. And there's one particular video with some meditation music and beautiful scenery that immediately shifts the energy in the room. It immediately brings, it's an anchor for me. As soon as I start to see that scenery and hear that music, I immediately can take a deep breath and just let all that other stuff just fall away. Let all that other stuff just fall away. That particular video has become an anchor for me. And I realized that this morning as I had it on earlier this morning, I realized this is really an anchor. It anchors me in the truth that I know. It brings me back to my center. It brings me back to my focus. And that's what we have to find. What is an anchor for you? What is an anchor for you? Sometimes it may be that 10 golden minutes that we talked about a while ago, the 10 golden minutes that some of you are still using. You know, when you first wake up in the morning, whatever that first 5 minutes is, whatever your affirmation may be, whatever your statement of truth may be, whatever your recognition of your oneness with God may be, you may want to recite that. You may want to recite that, but have some kind of practice that is an anchor. It brings you out of the mesmerism of drama. It brings you out of the distractions of all the other stuff that's going on. It brings you back to your center. It could be meditation. It could be prayer. It could be whatever your go-to practice is. Let that be your anchor. Let that be your anchor, and it will carry you throughout your life. I was remembering that my grandmother I used to, when we would visit her, I would see her every night. She had a ritual that she used. She sat in her rocking chair, which I have in my home right now. And she sat in her rocking chair and she read the daily word. And then she got on her knees and she said her prayers. And then she went to bed. And then in the mornings, she would get up really early in the mornings and she would sit in her rocking chair and she would read the daily word. And then she would get on her knees and she would say her prayers. And then she would get up and she would call silent unity. And she called silent unity almost every day. But that was her routine. She didn't fail in that. That was her routine. She got up every morning. She read that daily word. She got on her knees and said her prayers, and she called silent unity for prayer. And that was a long time ago. That she was reading the daily word all those years ago. All those years ago. But that was her anchor. And she walked in faith. She had an unshakable faith. That was my guidepost for faith. My mother had an unshakable faith. And she had her own routines for reinforcing, revitalizing her faith every day. And I was just thinking about that this morning, about how to revitalize faith, and just remembering how my grandmother was so anchored in her faith. She had those anchors that kept her anchored in her faith. And so I'm asking you to have a go-to anchor or anchors. Have a go-to anchor, something that you do that can bring you immediately back to center. Like I was talking about the YouTube video with the music and the shifting of the energy. That's a quick thing for me if I'm working or whatever, or I'm busy and I don't have time to do very much else. I can just shift that music over, and it helps me remember to come back to center. It may be having a gong that goes off that reminds you to take a breath. Sometimes just taking a breath may not be enough. Depends on how caught up we get. Sometimes it may be affirmations. It may be going for a walk. Whatever it is that can anchor you, I'm encouraging you, have an anchor. Have an anchor. Have an anchor that brings you back to who you are. Have an anchor that reminds you of the truth of who you are. Have an anchor that brings you back into that place of faith, of having that thought of faith that can bring into manifestation the things that we desire in our lives. But it is faith that does that. And so rather than getting caught up in the crisis of the day, have your own faith of the day. Have your own faith du jour. And then allow yourself to be a part of or one of the architects of the beloved community that practices faith, the beloved community that recognizes the value and the worth of everyone, the beloved community that discriminates against no one, accepts everyone, the beloved community that is all about love and knowing that love is the only way, love is the only answer. And that love begins with me. That love begins with my open heart. That love begins with your open heart. That love begins with each one of us. And it is in that love that we practice our faith, in that love. And so I'm inviting you, establish and be anchored in your faith du jour, allowing that faith to allow you to be one of the architects of the beloved community, because we're practicing love for everyone. And so let's take a breath as we turn within in this moment. Just moving into that place of knowing and sensing and feeling the presence of God. Just knowing that that presence of God is right here, right now, right where we are. I'm knowing that that presence of God is the only presence, the only life, the only mind, the only breath, the only activity is God. This onlyness that is God is my life. This onlyness that is God is the life of each one of us. Each one of us is a unique emanation of that divine presence that is God. There's nothing that can separate us from that presence that is God. And so I speak the word for each of us this day, speaking a word of faith, speaking a word of love, speaking a word of wholeness, knowing that love permeates our entire being. Love is who we are. Love is who we be. And so we just each and all open our hearts and just allow that love to flow forth from us. Allow ourselves to be surrounded by this love that is God, indwelled by this love that is God. As we release and let go of those things that don't serve, we release and let go of the criticism, the judgment, and the blame, and the shame, and all that stuff that would block this free flow of love. And we open our hearts and allow forgiveness and compassion and understanding and wisdom and guidance and direction to flow freely through us as our very lives. I speak the word for anyone today who needs healing in their lives, healing in the body temple, from any physical discomfort or dis-ease, whether it be COVID or anything else. I know that the power and the presence of God is in the midst. That healing, radiant presence of God is in the midst of every organ, every cell, every tissue, every function of the body temple of anyone who appears to be in a place of dis-ease or disorder. That healing presence of God is moving through right here and right now. And into our bodies of affairs, that healing presence of God is moving in and through our bodies of affairs, and everything is made new. Everything is made right. All things are made new right here and right now by this word that's being spoken. I know that there's abundance and there's prosperity, and there are all needs being met, no matter what they may be, in each and every moment of each and every day. There's comfort for the broken hearts, healing for the broken hearts, comfort for those who have lost loved ones, those who are grieving, those who are feeling the pain of that loss. I know that God, the great comforter, is in the midst of everything. Is in the midst of their heartache, is in the midst of this time that they're going through right here and right now. I know that God is in the midst of everything, every situation, every circumstance, and that there's peace and there's harmony and there's balance and there's guidance for those who need guidance and direction. There's safety, there's protection, I speak a word for our government, for our political leaders as we move forward, just knowing that there's peace and there's guidance, for God is in the midst of each decision, each circumstance, each situation. God is in the midst of our leaders. God is guiding and directing and showing the way. And they each have the courage to follow that direction that they're receiving, that guidance that they're receiving. And so I just pause momentarily so that you may speak the names of anyone you'd like held in prayer this day. You may speak their names silently or loud, and you may speak them now. So for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is right where each person is, blessing and keeping them. This prayer goes out to anyone on this planet needing a prayer this day. Any situation, any circumstance, any event, God's in the midst of it. God is in the midst, and all is well. And so I simply say thank you, Father, Mother God, for this perfect manifestation of the word spoken here this day. Thank you, infinite presence. Thank you, Divine Mother. I know indeed that all is well, but I know indeed that all is God. And so I simply allow it to be now. And so it is.